Chapter 1396. Tao Divinity Shadow Dissension Rune. At the instant Su Ming lifted his head, his eyes sparkled brilliantly. The rain became heavier, and as thunder rumbled and lightning flashed, they illuminated everything for a time. As if he was an entity existing between darkness and light, Su Ming slowly stood up. His robes fluttered, and his purple hair danced while he stood on the cliff. Thunder roared even louder at that moment, and lightning intersected with each other. It looked as if night and day were joining together, changing places constantly, in an attempt to overlap with each other. "As you wish," Su Ming said flatly. His voice echoed in the fifth layer of the sky beyond the sky, then entered the fourth layer. Once it attracted the attention of all the people in the fourth layer, Yilong whipped his head up, and his eyes sparkled in a way that they had never done before. Su Ming's voice continued echoing in the air. It entered the third layer, the second layer, and eventually echoed in the first layer. During it, even the roars from the thunder could not drown out his voice. They became faint, and the light from the lightning also seemed to fade away. There were no more flashing lights. When all the people's gazes were directed at the sky, Su Ming swung his arm and took a step into the air. With that one step, he stepped off the mountain, and with another, he stepped into the fourth layer. He landed on the huge feng shui compass and stood beside Yilong. All the people's gazes in Seven Moons sect were gathered on Su Ming. "That's Wang Dao? His Wang Dao? His that Wang Dao? Have you heard? That person isn't a normal disciple. His one of the sect elders." "Sect elder? That's impossible. Heh. I wonder how many formations this sect elder can clear. If he can't even clear 3 or 5 formations, then he's just a joke." The buzz of discussion instantly reverberated through Seven Moons sect, and it was especially loud among the outer sect disciples in the first layer. They paid attention to the event the most. After all, practically all of them knew about what had happened not too long ago in the outer sect, and their curiosity in regards to Su Ming was incredibly strong. As for the Seven Moons sect disciples in the second and third layers, not many of them knew that Su Ming was a sect elder. Once they heard that piece of information, they were surprised, and derision became the dominant emotion when they looked at Su Ming. Even though they did not know how he had become a sect elder, but in ancient Zong, the deciding factor for respect was still a person's level of cultivation. If it was not high, then no matter what status that person had, they would only be able to temporarily obtain respect and polite treatment. It would not last long. They would be like a tree without roots. Once the chance arose, someone might ensure their untimely demise. Only those with matching levels of cultivation compared to their status could live long, and only they could obtain true respect. Besides those from the second and third layers, even those from the fourth layers also looked at Su Ming with mockery. They looked at him like a clown, and their attitude towards him was full of aloofness and disregard. "I'd like to see just what sort of ability this Wang Dao has after not showing his face for 8 years. I admire this Yilong somewhat, but Wang Dao? He. We'll know once we watch him. He's just a coward. What's there to watch? HMPH. He lives in the 5th layer of sky beyond the sky." Looks like the rumors from the outer sect disciples about this person being a sect elder are somewhat believable. Sect elder? What right does he have to be a sect elder? Divine thoughts went back and forth through the 4th layer, and when the people training there looked at Su Ming, their expressions differed, but most of them were aloof. Sect members of the 3rd line, when you see this Wang Dao in the future, you will have to immediately kneel down and worship him, then respectfully call him your uncle master. When the mocking words came from the 4th layer, the Seven Moons sect disciples who were training in the projection of a mountain all had incredibly sullen expressions on their faces. The mountain in which Su Ming had stayed for the 8 years belonged to the 3rd line. Right then, the disciples who stayed in it in the 4th layer of sky beyond the sky were disciples whose status were 1 rank lower than that of Su Ming. All of them were scowling at that moment with dark expressions. The mocking laughter from the other lines in the mountain left them incredibly embarrassed. Eldest senior sister, this Wang Dao. Damn it, why did he have to embarrass us? Since he already avoided the challenge for 8 years, he should have continued doing that. Why must he embarrass us like this? He's just making our sect the laughing stock. The disciples of the 3rd line knew more than the others. For example, they knew his status. They had not been willing to speak of it during the years, But right then, they were forced to face the problem. Let him know his own strength. When we meet him in the future after that, he will not put on airs just because he's our senior. This is a disgrace, the third line's disgrace. A woman who looked to be 20 years old in the mountain in the fourth layer of sky beyond the sky belonging to the third line frowned. When she spoke flatly, her voice echoed in the air, causing all the people in the third line to fall silent. That's enough. He hasn't challenged the rune yet. Once he finishes challenging it, you can go on and humiliate him as much as you want, it won't be too late then. The woman was eldest senior sister and Lan Lan's head disciple. Amid the buzzing noise in the area, Yi Long stared at Su Ming on the feng shui compass. Strong fighting spirit was in his eyes. During the trial in the past, he had never taken the step into Su Ming's blood moon-enveloped mountain, and it had become a constant thought in his heart. It filled his mind and became the reason why he continuously used the rune to prove himself over the 8 years, and it was also the reason why he kept challenging Su Ming. His opponent had never appeared, but it only served to make Yi Long even more determined. At that moment, he finally saw Su Ming, the person who could no longer avoid him. They met for the first time since 8 years ago. With 8 years, I've successfully cleared 7 formations. Wang Dao, as the person known as the eldest senior brother due to the trial in the past, today, I want to see how many formations you can clear. Yi Long laughed loudly. He turned into a long arc and returned to his mountain. He turned around after landing on it and looked at Su Ming with brightly burning eyes. When he had spoken, the buzz in the first 4 layers of 7 Moons sect instantly became a little quieter, but soon, they grew loud once more. I remember now. This Wang Dao surpassed all the others in the trial in the past. It's said that he obtained 140-something spirit plates during that time. You only remembered now? That's right, it's that person. But his splendor only lasted for a brief moment. Amid the discussions, Su Ming stood on the feng shui compass and watched the 4th feng shui compass beneath him disappear. Then, it was followed by the 3rd feng shui compass, and after it, even the 2nd feng shui became an illusion. After they disappeared, Su Ming stood on the 1st feng shui compass right at the bottom. I, Wang Dao, will challenge the Dao Divinity Shadow Dissension rune. Su Ming's words were simple. At the instant he spoke, he heard quite a lot of mocking laughter. It was also during that moment that a languid voice came from the 6th layer of sky beyond the sky. Permission granted. That voice belonged to Dao Han, the red-robed man. When Yi Long wanted to challenge the rune, Dao Han had to approve of it, because Yi Long was his disciple. If it was anyone else, they would not deserve him opening his mouth for them. But Su Ming was a sect elder, and only the Great Master of 7 Moons sect had the right to approve sect elders who wanted to challenge the Dao Divinity Shadow Dissension runes. Perhaps the outer sect disciples from the 1st layer in 7 Moons sect did not have much knowledge about it, but the disciples from the 2nd to the 4th layers knew about it. At that moment, all of them instantly fell silent. The rumors regarding Su Ming being a sect elder seemed to have been true. But even though the 7 Moons sect disciples had become quiet, most of them had derision and scorn in their eyes when they looked at Su Ming. Only a small part of the outer sect disciples in the 1st layer of 7 Moons sect were excited and hopeful. While standing on the feng shui compass, Su Ming lowered his head to look at the runic symbols forming it and remembered the bald crane. If the bald crane was here, it would definitely open a betting pool, then with an excited and eager expression, it would wait for the harvest. As Su Ming thought about it, a smile appeared on his face. He shook his head, then lifted his right leg and stomped on the feng shui compass. As booming sounds echoed in the air, the feng shui compass began rotating. A powerful pressure instantly spread out from the runic symbols to gather on Su Ming. I've been silent for 8 years. It's about time that I show a bit of my power, or else, it's not too good for people to constantly call out my name. When Su Ming spoke faintly, he did not even spare a glance at the pressure that was gathered on him. Instead, he lifted his right foot again and stomped on the feng shui compass. With a bang, the pressure that had gathered on Su Ming instantly crumbled. Crumbling with it was the rotating feng shui compass. It fell apart, and the countless runic symbols tumbled backwards as if they could not withstand the power from Su Ming's stomp. Second formation. When Su Ming spoke, the runic symbols that had spread out instantly gathered together to form a feng shui compass once more. At the instant it rotated, Su Ming lifted his foot again and put it down gently. Boom! In front of the shocked faces of the Seven Moons sect disciples, the feng shui compass crumbled again and tumbled backwards in every direction. It looked like its mighty pressure and the power of the rune was so weak that they could not even withstand a single hit from Su Ming. When the feng shui compass crumbled again, Su Ming levitated in mid-air. Third formation, he then said flatly. The moment he spoke, the hope and excitement within the outer sect disciples in the first layer grew, and the inner sect disciples in the second layer were all flabbergasted. They clearly knew the strength of the first and second formations. While they might not be too difficult, Su Ming had cleared them with just a few simple steps, which left them in disbelief. Chapter 1397, Tao Divinity Shadow Dissension Rune compared to the inner sect disciples in the second layer of sky beyond the sky. The Seven Moon sect disciples in the third layer might have also been stunned, but their expressions remained the same. After all, it were just the first and second formations. They might not be able to clear those formations as easily as Su Ming, but they were not difficult for them. However, the derision that was originally on their faces had mostly disappeared and were replaced by seriousness. Su Ming's act of clearing the formations just then had stunned them. Only the people in the fourth layer remained contemptuous. That's nothing. We can do that as well, it's just that there's no need for us to do so. It's clear that he doesn't have enough confidence, that's why he's acting like this to redeem himself. Heh, the first three formations are nothing. Once he gets past the fifth formation, only then will the rune show its true strength. I wonder if he will even have the chance to see it. They were not the only ones calm. It was the same for Yi Long. He did not have any sort of changes in expression because of how Su Ming had cleared the first two formations. He had never underestimated Su Ming in the slightest. In his eyes, Su Ming could clear up 5 formations, and only when it came to the 6th or the 7th that he would certainly experience difficulties. Everyone's expressions changed the next instant. When the feng shui compass beneath Su Ming gathered together and became whole, a large number of runic symbols also appeared above him to form an even bigger feng shui compass. At the instant the third formation appeared, Su Ming appeared above the second feng shui compass. He lifted his foot and placed it down gently. Booming sounds instantly shook the sky and earth. When they echoed in the air, they drowned out the thunder. The feng shui compass under Su Ming's feet crumbled along with the one beneath it. The brilliant light formed by the two feng shui compasses breaking down at the same time caused the pupils of all the disciples in the fourth layer of sky beyond the sky to shrink. In fact, some of the disciples in the third layer had already stood up. They went to their cliffs and stared at the sky with different expressions from before. As for the disciples in the second layer, they had already begun making a huge ruckus, and it was even more lively among the outer sect disciples in the first layer. Their voices echoed in the air, many of them cries of surprise. The collapse of the first and second formations was not enough to prove anything. After all, there was a limit to the power of the rune's first and second formations. As long as someone had power that surpassed the limit, they could do what Su Ming had done. If that limit was categorized into a number, and that number was 10, then if someone had a power level of 11, they could also make the formation explode. It did not matter if they had 11 or 10,000, they could make the formations explode. That was why cultivators could not tell just how powerful a cultivator who did such a thing was. But when the formations grew stronger, the limit would continuously increase. The third formation was already 10 times the strength of the second formation. But Su Ming had still managed to crush it while looking as calm as ever. Such a thing shocked many people. But it was destined that the shock brought by that rainy night had only begun. At the instant the cultivators trained their gazes on Su Ming, he opened his mouth, and his words echoed in every direction, reaching the ears of practically every cultivator in the sect. Fourth formation. Right when his voice appeared, the howls and whistles from the rune grew piercing, and the two collapsed feng shui compasses formed by runic symbols instantly gathered together under his feet. When the runic symbols rotated, waves of even stronger mighty pressure spread out. It felt like the descent of the might of heaven, as if an invisible hand had appeared from the air to seize Su Ming. His expression remained the same, however. Nothing about him changed. The moment he called for the fourth formation, he lifted his right foot and placed it down. Booming sounds echoed in the world, and as the feng shui compass under his feet shattered, the second feng shui compass under it also did not last. It looked as if it was not the fourth formation, but still the first formation. This brought shock to all the people watching, but before their discussions and shocked gasps could travel far, Su Ming rose up again. His robes fluttered, and his purple hair seemed messy while it danced in the air. Behind him, thunder rumbled. As lightning intersected with each other, it illuminated his body, making him an incredibly clear sight to the crowd. Fifth formation. His words instantly caused the thunder to become background noise. Lightning had to avoid him, and rain froze. The third feng shui compass appeared under Su Ming's feet, and the two feng shui compasses that had crumbled gathered together once more. The three feng shui compasses floated in the air, and Su Ming was above them. During that moment, he was the center of everyone's attention. In the distance, Yi Long's face turned a little pale. He fixed his stare on Su Ming, because he had not expected that Su Ming could so easily clear 4 formations in one go. It was not hard for him to imagine Su Ming clearing 4 formations, but he would have never guessed that he could do it so easily. It almost felt like all the things that had happened to him during the 8 years had just turned into a joke. Yi Long remembered the challenges he had issued over the 8 years. Right then, it felt as if it was just a mockery. At that moment, the other cultivators in the 4th layer of sky beyond the sky no longer had mocking looks on their faces. Instead, they paid full attention to Su Ming. They no longer said anything to the people from the 3rd line either, because they had been shocked by the ease with which Su Ming cleared the formations. Most of the people from the 3rd layer were standing on cliffs and staring at Su Ming. As for the 2nd layer, the cliffs there were filled with practically every single person from the 2nd layer. And they were even more packed in the 1st layer of sky beyond the sky. It's just the first 4 formations. Let's see whether he'll be able to do things with such ease in the 5th and 6th formations. Yes, all of us have already cleared more than 7 formations, and it's especially so for eldest senior brother Fei Feng from the 1st line. He is the strongest in this generation. He has already cleared 19 formations. Besides senior brother Fei Feng, senior brother Chen Dao from the 2nd line has also cleared 17 formations. That's right, there's also senior sister Yu Yang from the 3rd line. I remember that she has already cleared 16 formations. There are also some others who have cleared more than 10 formations. This Wang Dao is still going to be just a joke. HMH, look at the 13th mountain. The disciples managing the 13th line have all cleared more than 13 formations. As the disciples from the 4th layer discussed among themselves, the 3 feng shui compasses gathered together again, and Su Ming lowered his head to cast a glance at the one beneath his feet. A surprised glint appeared for the first time in his eyes. This feng shui compass. The more I look at it, the more it resembles Xianzong's feng shui compass. Su Ming's eyes shone. He could sense that the 3 feng shui compasses were exuding an increasingly stronger mighty pressure as they continued rotating, but despite it being far stronger than before, it could still not affect Su Ming. However, as Su Ming looked at the compasses, he had a vague feeling that their rotations had a pattern. Dao Divinity Shadow Dissension Rune. Since this rune has such a name, then it is definitely related to the 7 Lives art. Su Ming pondered it for a little while. He did not immediately make the feng shui compasses crumble like he did previously, but began to observe them closely. His eyes suddenly shrank. He could see that there seemed to be 2 shadows on the 2 feng shui compasses starting from the bottom. The 2 shadows were of him. The level of this rune is still too low, I can't see too many changes. A brilliant light shone in Su Ming's eyes as he was deep in thought. Then, he no longer took a step forward. Instead, he swung his arm. With it, the world roared, and the feng shui compass underneath him trembled. As the people in the area cried out in surprise, the feng shui compass crumbled again, and the 2 beneath it also started shattered. 6th formation. Su Ming lifted his head. A sparkle, one that showed when he was deducing something, shone in his eyes. When he opened his mouth to speak again, the 3 feng shui compasses manifested under him once more, and Su Ming lifted his right hand and swung it again. Loud booming sounds shot up, shocking the hearts of all the cultivators beyond the 3rd layer of sky beyond the sky. There were even quite a number of 7 Moons sect disciples in the 4th layer of sky beyond the sky who had their previous assumptions shaken at that moment. Could this be the signs of him wanting to clear the 10th formation? Could it be that we can see another person clear the 10th formation today? In Seven Moons Sect, only one person can clear the 10th formation every 10 years or so. Could it be that this Wang Dao wants to clear the 10th formation? It's impossible. His level of cultivation will not allow him to do so. Even for us, the 10th formation poses quite a challenge. There might be a number of us who have cleared it, but besides the senior brothers and sisters who have cleared up to the 13th formation, not one of us can be absolutely certain to be able to clear it again. That's right, this is too absurd. He has only joined the sect for a few years. It's not so easy to gain the epiphany for the 10th formation. While the disciples in the 4th layer of sky beyond the sky were discussing among themselves, Yilong's face had turned stark pale, and he looked as if he was using all his strength to not fall back. He stared at Su Ming blankly, and anguish gradually appeared on his face. He had come to finally understand what was going on. For the past 8 years, Su Ming had not been avoiding him. Instead, he had simply deemed the challenge beneath him. Right then, there was a high possibility that Su Ming had been annoyed by Yilong's continuous bothering and chose to make a move only because of that. Over the past 8 years, I have just been a joke in his eyes. I can't accept this. I can't. Strong fighting spirit appeared in Yilong's eyes. However, even he did not know that his fighting spirit was fake and just created by himself. It was a weak existence. The 7th formation. He still hasn't cleared the 7th formation yet. When Yilong murmured those words, he looked at Su Ming once more. 3 feng shui compasses gathered together under Su Ming, and above him, the 4th feng shui compass swiftly appeared. It was so big that it looked like a plane's. At that moment, it levitated above Su Ming and rotated together with the 3 feng shui compasses beneath it. As they did so, Su Ming lifted his head to look at them. The light of understanding gradually appeared in his eyes. While the people in the area watched and waited, he smiled. So that's how it is. Then, I might as well have the 8th and 9th formations appear together. While saying that, Su Ming lifted his right hand and swung his arm. This time, the feng shui compasses did not crumble. Instead, more runic symbols appeared above the 4th feng shui compass to form the 5th feng shui compass. Chapter 1398. Tao Divinity Shadow Descension. At the instant the 5th feng shui compass appeared, a buzzing sound that could not be described with words stirred up in the Seven Moons Sect. The many outer sect disciples in the 1st layer of sky beyond the sky all sucked in a sharp breath. They stared at the sky with wide eyes and disbelief on their faces. They could not believe that the 5th feng shui compass had appeared before the 7th formation had been cleared. What's going on? I've been in the outer sect for many years. Besides Yilong, I've also seen many inner sect disciples clear the rune, but this is the first time I've seen something like this. As the outer sect disciples went into an outburst, the sect master of outer sect, the white-robed scholar and the former guide for Yilong let out a soft sigh. He knew that Yilong's pride would not let him accept that there was someone else in his generation who was stronger than him. That was why he had issued all those challenges, and that was also why such a sight would deal an incredibly great blow to him. Yilong lost. He completely lost. He chose the wrong opponent. The white-robed scholar lifted his head and looked at Su Ming, who was among the 5 feng shui compasses. A hint of respect appeared in his eyes. That respect was not due to Su Ming's status, but because of Su Ming's actions. The white-robed scholar was the sect master of the outer sect, and he had been in Seven Moons Sect for many years, which meant that he understood the meaning of what was happening right then. It was something that would only happen after a person had come to gain an epiphany of the first 9 formations. It did not mean that Su Ming was about to challenge the 7th formation, and neither was he going to clear the 8th or the 9th formations. It was the 10th formation. He jumped straight from the 7th formation to the 10th formation. There has not been many who managed to do this since ancient times. The other attendants of the outer sect around the middle-aged scholar looked towards Su Ming with respect in their gazes. The disciples from the 2nd layer of sky beyond the sky were in the same state of commotion as the outer sect disciples in the 1st layer. In fact, the uproar there was no quieter. At that moment, All the cultivators from the second layer were standing on their mountains and staring at Su Ming in disbelief. They were inner sect disciples, and they knew what they were seeing, because they had seen it before. They had seen some who had succeeded, and they had also seen those who had failed. But when it happened, all those who tried to challenge the feng shui compass like that became famous people in Seven Moons sect. It was at that moment that everyone understood just how stunning was the appearance of the fifth feng shui compass. The 10th formation. This is the 10th formation. This Wang Dao gained an epiphany during the 7th formation and caused the rune to change, so the 10th formation appeared. While the second layer of sky beyond of sky was buzzing with noise, the commotion that stirred in the third layer of sky beyond the sky was also astonishing. There was no longer derision in the cultivators' eyes, it had been replaced by excitement and anticipation. They longed for Su Ming to succeed. They were excited to see it happen because it did not seem like he would stop just there. Compared to the Seven Moons sect disciples in the third layer of sky beyond the sky, the core disciples in the fourth layer of sky beyond the sky all had differing expressions. Their stares were fixated on Su Ming, since they had an even more thorough understanding of the 10th formation. The shock in their hearts was even stronger because of that. The disciples who had mentioned previously that Su Ming was about to challenge the 10th formation had excitement on their faces. When they looked at Su Ming, the mockery on their faces had turned into expectation. And those cultivators who cleared the 10th formation had respect appear in their eyes when they stared at Su Ming as well. At that moment, it could be said that there was not a single gaze that contained the derision they once had. Su Ming had used his actions to crush all the scorn targeted towards him. It was especially so for the people from the third line. Right then, their excitement and cheers were even strongest and the loudest. Quite a number of them seemed to have accepted Su Ming, changing sides in a battle. However, they had just accepted Su Ming as an equal. They did not have the respect towards him as a senior. Whether or not their acceptance would eventually turn into respect would depend on which formation Su Ming would eventually stumble. It's impossible for him to succeed. It's not so easy to clear the 10th formation. I'll watch him fail. Indeed, if the 10th formation could be cleared that easily, I wouldn't have needed to try 8 times to clear it. There were quite a few people saying such words in the fourth layer. As their discussion echoed in the air, Yi Long stared at the 5 feng shui compasses before him, and blood trickled out the corners of his mouth. He took a few staggering steps back, and when he fell down on one knee, he coughed up a huge mouthful of blood. He struggled to lift his head with anguish on his face. I can't accept this. When he mumbled those words, Su Ming lifted his head to look at the even larger 5th feng shui compass that had appeared above him. His expression was still the same. When the 5th feng shui compass rotated with a bang, waves of mighty pressure instantly descended on Su Ming. For the first time ever, he had a feeling as if his body was about to split while under the mighty pressure. The sensation was very weak, but it still managed to excite Su Ming. He observed the mighty pressure without caring that it was descending on him. Instead, he paid attention to the patterns of the 5 feng shui compasses' rotations. When he saw figures on the 5 feng shui compasses which looked like his own shadows, his eyes sparkled. This rune helps 7 Moons sect disciples split their shadows from themselves, and it's the strongest in the 5 feng shui compasses that appear in the first 9 formations. Once all of them appear, the feeling of splitting apart is meant for people to experience it. If a person can endure it, they will be able to split their first shadow figure. It is the second life mentioned in the 7 lives art, the one besides the person's very own life. I've already had a shadow figure split from my shadow, so I don't need the rune to help me split my shadow, but I wonder if my shadow continues to split, will another shadow figure appear? Su Ming's eyes sparkled, and he slowly closed his eyes to sense the feeling of being split apart so that he could check his thoughts. Time passed, and soon, the time it takes for 1 incense stick to burn was over. The people who were observing Su Ming in 7 Moons sect were waiting to see whether he would succeed. They were not in a hurry, because all those who challenged the 10th formation would require quite a large amount of time to clear it. The longest stretch of time had lasted for several months, and the shortest was several days. But when the time it takes for an incense stick to burn was over, Su Ming's eyes flew open. There was a hint of regret in them. The first 9 runes, or rather, the 10th formation is a little low in grade. Since I've already had a shadow figure split from my shadow, The formation is of no use to me. But I'm quite interested in it after seeing what it can do. Su Ming's eyes sparkled. A faint smile appeared on his lips, and he lifted his right hand. This time, he did not swing his arm, but pushed his palm at the center of his brow. With it, the shadows appeared on the other feng shui compasses and gained corporeal form. The 5 feng shui compasses let out loud bangs, and the 7 moons sect disciples in the area were completely stunned. Their jaws fell slack in disbelief when they saw the 5 feng shui compasses overlap with each other while the loud bangs roared in the air. Su Ming's illusory figures on them also overlapped with one another. When the loud bang shook all the people's hearts, they saw, besides a huge feng shui compass left in the sky, another Su Ming had appeared across from the original one. It was Su Ming's shadow figure. When it stood there, the first 4 layers of 7 moons sect instantly fell into dead silence. After a moment though, a loud commotion that did not lose to the one previously shot up into the air. This is. He actually succeeded. In just the time it takes an incense stick to burn? He cleared it in just the time it takes an incense stick to burn. That's impossible. He actually managed to clear the 10th formation. This is. But it's too fast. Could it be that the first 10 formations are truly that easy for him? Wang Dao, the chosen 8 years ago. Could it be that after being silent for 8 years, he appeared to shock all of 7 Moon sect? It's impossible for him to stop now. Could it be that he wants to challenge the head disciples in charge of each line and clear 13 formations? If he can clear the 14th formation, he would obtain 2 shadow figures, and it would mean that he has managed to perfect the 3 lives art. What a joke. Starting from the 11th formation, the shadow of punishment will appear. The many shadows are refined from the shadows from the cultivators we of 7 Moon sect have killed over countless years. If this Wang Dao is lucky, he will run into the weaker ones, but if he has bad luck... You can't say that. While the shadows of punishment will indeed appear starting from the 11th formation, each formation has a limit to their power. It's impossible for a shadow that surpasses the limit of the formation's power to appear. The commotion reverberated through the air. Compared to the 4th layer's understanding of the rune, the understanding of the cultivators in the 3rd layer was not great, but they could still see some things. That rainy night was bound to be unforgettable for them. The outer sect disciples from the 1st layer and those from the 2nd layer were in an uproar. Their voices echoed in the air, causing 7 Moons sect to be in a state of commotion that it had never experienced before. Yi Long had already lowered his head and no longer looked at Su Ming. Even the unwillingness to admit defeat in his heart had turned into numbness, and then, to stillness. He had lost. He had completely lost. It was at the instant Su Ming cleared the 10th formation that he was noticed by the powerful warriors whose level of cultivation was second only to the head disciples who were in charge of leading the 13 mountains in the 4th layer of sky beyond the sky. However, the level of attention they gave him differed due to the difference in the number of formations each head disciple had cleared. The head disciple from the 1st line, Fei Feng, remained seated in his own cave abode without any changes in his expression. He did not even open his eyes, as if Su Ming's act of clearing the 10th formation was not something that posed a threat to him nor even something that would require Fei Feng to pay attention to him. He was not the only one acting like that. Chen Dao of the 2nd linear man with a rather sullen face also remained seated in his cave abode. He did not pay any attention to the matters in the outside world. But it was different, for the eldest senior sister Yu Yang, who had previously spoken from the 3rd line. Her eyes were as clear as water, and she had been paying attention to Su Ming since the start. At that moment, a fierce glare gradually appeared in her eyes. Where will your limit be? She wondered softly. When the cultivators from the 4th layer gathered their gazes on Su Ming, he slowly lifted his head to stare at the night sky above him. I like darkness. Then, before daylight, let's see how many formations I will clear. Su Ming lifted his right hand and swung his arm at the sky. 11th formation. When his voice echoed in the air, thunder roared. Clouds tumbled and spread outwards to reveal a clear piece of night sky adorned by stars. The starlight gathered swiftly on the feng shui compass where Su Ming stood to form a shadow. Who awakened my shadow? 3,000 years ago, I was killed by the thrice-cursed sect elder of the 9th line in 7 Moons sect. I am Guru Xianxia. Chapter 1399. Tao Divinity Shadow Dissension Rune. There was endless resentment in that voice, along with a hint of madness brought by an unwillingness to admit defeat. When it echoed in every direction and resounded through 7 Moons sect, the figure in front of Su Ming on top the feng shui compass turned into a shadow. However, that shadow stood vertical and soon began to distort. In the blink of an eye, it turned into an old man with a head full of white hair and dressed in a long robe with stars on it. Veins popped up on his face when he glared at Su Ming. 7 Moons sect disciple. 7 Moons sect disciple. Once the old man cast a glance at Su Ming, he laughed madly. Waves of powerful killing intent spread out from him. At the instant the old man appeared, cries of surprise rang out in the first layer of sky beyond the sky. Once the outer sect disciples joined the sect, there were few who managed to see the 11th formation of the Tao Divinity Shadow Dissension Rune. Upon seeing it, they immediately began paying attention to it. Compared to them, the 7 Moons sect disciples in the second layer of sky beyond the sky were different. Their expressions changed at that moment. Their knowledge of the world was much greater, so most of them had already seen someone clear the 11th formation, but they had never seen Guru Xianxia before. Different shadows had appeared when other people cleared the 11th formation, but they had never exuded such mighty pressure and crazed killing intent as Guru Xianxia. Those in the second layer did not know who he was, but the disciples in the third layer of sky beyond the sky did. At the moment they saw him, they took a few swift steps forward as if they wanted to take a closer look at him. Their expressions changed, and in the end, a grim look settled on their faces. Guru Xianxia. He's a powerful warrior who brought chaos to ancient Zong 3,000 years ago. He was then killed by a sect elder of our sect. I didn't expect that this person would have already been refined into a Tao shadow. I heard about him before. Apparently, most of the cultivators who participated in killing this Guru Xianxia from 7 Moons sect came from the 4th layer of sky beyond the sky. Those of us in the 3rd layer might have been allowed to join the operation, but only a few of us had a direct hand in it. Most of us were in the periphery to set up a sealing rune. This Wang Dao. He might have quite a bit of difficulty in clearing the formation this time. It would have been fine if he had ran into someone else, but he just had to run into Guru Xianxia, who was infamous throughout the land. When the disciples in the 3rd layer of sky beyond the sky were shocked because they saw Guru Xianxia and began discussing about him among themselves, the cultivators in the 4th layer of sky beyond the sky, who could be considered to be the most elite of the cultivators in 7 Moons sect filled with killing intent that came from the depths of their souls. The sect elder had not appeared in the beginning of the battle. The disciples had been the ones who attacked, but Guru Xianxia had cast an unknown divine ability that increased his cultivation base exponentially for a short period of time, allowing him to reach the terrifying 1st level of Tao Divinity Realm. To him, killing them was as easy as crushing ants. He did it, of course, which stirred up the sect elder's anger, and he had personally descended there. Once they engaged in a fight that shook the sky and earth, the sect elder killed Guru Xianxia. They had never managed to find the secret art Guru Xianxia used to increase his level of cultivation from the initial stage of Avanakaya realm to the 1st level of Tao Divinity realm within a short 6 hours. No matter how 7 Moons sect searched his soul, they could not find it. While the secret art could not really allow him to remain in the 1st level of Tao Divinity realm for a long period of time, but it was so powerful that 7 Moons sect placed high value on it. That was also the reason why his body was destroyed, but his shadow was left behind and sealed in the rune. Most of the disciples in the 4th layer of sky beyond the sky knew of that secret, but it was the first time that Guru Xianxia had appeared in the 11th formation. Upon seeing him again, old hatred rose in the hearts of the disciples from the 4th layer of sky beyond the sky. The battle in the past had been a wretched one. Those of the same line beside them had died one by one, and even 3 head disciples in charge of leading the mountains had died. It's that person. It's a pity that when I challenged the rune in the past, I never met his shadow, or I would have definitely taken revenge for senior brother Shu. His body was destroyed by the sect elder, so only his shadow remains. His level of cultivation has been reduced to the later stage of plain Kalpa realm. It wouldn't be difficult for me to kill him if he only has that level of cultivation. Wang Dao, kill that person. Wang Dao, That person killed a lot of disciples from Seven Moons sect in the past. Kill him. Voices rose and fell from the fourth layer of sky beyond the sky. When they landed in Su Ming's ears, he cast a glance at Guru Xianxia, and a thought appeared in his heart. It's impossible that he brought chaos to anywhere in ancient Zong with his level of cultivation. It's also impossible for Seven Moons sect to have needed to mobilize so many cultivators to surround and seal him, even if he was in the initial stage of Avacania realm. Looks like this Guru Xianxia has quite a number of secrets. A ghost of a smile appeared on Su Ming's lips when he cast another glance at Guru Xianxia. And this is the first time this person appeared in the 11th formation in 3,000 years. I won't believe that my luck is so good that I met him. Someone must have manipulated it. Su Ming shook his head. Guru Xianxia roared at that moment. He formed a seal with his hands, and two black phoenixes flew out of his hands. When they intersected with each other, they occupied most of the feng shui compass. Piercing screeches charged at Su Ming, closing in on and enveloping Su Ming. You've gone against the rules. At the instant the black phoenixes enveloped Su Ming and hid him from view, a deep voice spoke from the fifth layer of sky beyond the sky. It echoed in the mountains and landed at the top of the mountain belonging to the third line, right in the palace where Lan Lan sat meditating. This person is not supposed to be released. We only use the rune to suppress him. Sect Elder Lan, I will need an explanation. Lan Lan opened her eyes and said softly, Great Master, my master sent a message in regards to this. If you have any objections, please ask my master. Once she said those words, the voice from before did not speak again. Lan Lan cast her gaze to the area outside as if she could see through the palace to the feng shui compass where Su Ming was at that moment. Master is in isolation right now. It's impossible for him to have participated in this. Only when you kill the man in front of the disciples of the fourth layer will they accept you. No one in Seven Moons sect could find his secret, but I have a feeling that you can. As Lan Lan mumbled to herself, a loud bang that shook the sky and earth shot out from the feng shui compass in the fourth layer of sky beyond the sky. The two black phoenixes let out shrill screeches of pain. They disintegrated, and the feng shui compass became clear again. Su Ming was standing as if he had never done anything, but the eyes of Guru Xianxia shrank. Bring out what made you bring chaos to ancient Zong, or else you are not worthy of me attacking you, Su Ming said flatly. His voice was calm, but when it traveled through the area, it shocked the cultivators from Seven Moons sect. With an unprecedentedly grave look on his face, Guru Xianxia lifted his right hand and swung his arm at the air. Immediately, the world rumbled. An indistinct crack appeared in the sky, but if anyone looked closely, they would see that it was not a crack. It was a huge whip. The red whip did not have corporeal form and was just an illusion. When Guru Xianxia lifted his right hand, he grabbed it. Besides having the secret art that allowed me to reach the first level of Tao divinity realm within a short period of time and become an overlord of a region, I also had this space whip. It's a pity that besides me, no one knows where the real body of the whip lies. And you too can only see the illusion of the whip, manifested from my heart. You won't have a chance to personally experience its real might. Still, it can be considered to be your serendipity to witness the might of this illusory whip. A ferocious smile appeared at the corners of Guru Xianxia's lips. When he lifted his right hand, the space whip let out a roar as if it had just cracked the space in the world. In an instant, it turned into a red line that charged towards Su Ming. He remained as calm as ever, but a thought appeared in his mind. The old man had spoken too much, and the information he revealed as well as the discussions from the people around him caused Su Ming to smile when he looked at the old man. Right when his smile appeared, the whip charged at him. Su Ming took a step forward, lifted his right hand, and grabbed it. Immediately, he caught the red whip. But the instant he touched the whip, a loud bang shot up in his heart. Memories instantly rose in his mind, and they all came from harmonious Morus Alba. They tumbled about as if they had been stirred up by a strange power in the whip. Su Ming's body jolted. He felt as if his shadow and his soul were about to be extracted by the whip, as if he was about to be separated from Wang Dao, from the body he had successfully possessed. This whip, Su Ming's eyes sparkled. He circulated his cultivation base to forcibly stop the whip's power to stir his memories. When he took a step forward, with the whip seized tightly in his right hand, he drew close to Guru Xianxia, whose eyes had went wide and whose jaw was slack from shock. Su Ming raised his left hand and swiftly struck Guru Xianxia between the eyebrows. A wave of power belonging to Soul Seek swiftly spread out from Su Ming's left hand. He planned to search through Guru Xianxia's memories for the true whip from and the secret art that allowed his level of cultivation to increase exponentially for a short period of time. That's impossible. You managed to catch my space whip. Guru Xianxia saw Su Ming's left hand approach him, and a hint of scorn suddenly appeared on his face, but that scorn was not very strong, since the shock he experienced just then diminished it. No one can search through my memories. If the 13 great sect elders of Seven Moons sect could not do it, you have no chance. Guru Xianxia laughed loudly when Su Ming's left hand pressed down at the center of his brow. Su Ming leaned into Guru Xianxia then and whispered softly into his ear, "That's because before me, there have been no abyss builders here nor any arts that could reverse time." Chapter 1400. Tao Divinity Shadow Dissension Rune Yu. Once Guru Xianxia heard Su Ming's soft whisper, his pupils shrank, but the next instant, his eyes became unfocused, as if he had become dazed. Su Ming's right hand was pressed against the center of his brow. The power to reverse time was revealed for the first time in ancient Zong, and it fused into Guru Xianxia's soul. At that instant, a picture appeared in Su Ming's mind. A man in a black robe was standing in the picture. With a cold face, he stood on a tall mountain. A huge door was floating before him. At that moment, the door was open. The black-robed man took a step forward to walk through the door, but he turned his head slightly around, as if he wanted to cast a glance at the world before he stepped inside. In that man's right hand was a string of pearls, as well as a red thread that connected the 9 pearls together, and that red thread was. At the instant Su Ming saw it, he remembered the illusory shadow of the space whip Guru Xianxia had brandished just then. Those who search for my Tao, when you tread down this path of mine which might kill you or allow you to live, you may call out to the power I, Xianzong, left behind in my homeland. When the voice echoed in the air, the picture vanished from Su Ming's mind. At the same time, Guru Xianxia let out a shrill scream of pain. He trembled while sounding incredibly forlorn. At that moment, the rain turned into snow. It was endless. As the snowflakes floated down from the sky, even the entire western side of ancient Zong began snowing. As well as the eastern side, the northern side, the southern side. All regions in ancient Zong, including the 7 sects and 12 clans, began having snow at that instant, and it was the same for all the cities and land in ancient Zong. At first glance, it looked like snow, but when people took a closer look, it showed up to be dust. All of ancient Zong, be it mountains, rivers, the 7 sects and 12 clans, and the royal capital, felt a rotten presence at that instant. It only appeared for an instant before it dissipated. Disappearing along with it was the snow that covered all of ancient Zong. Su Ming lifted his left hand. At that moment, old Xianxia's eyes went wide, shining with incredulousness while he stared at Su Ming in a daze. Gradually, his body began to tremble. You are, Master." As he mumbled, his body let out a bang, and he turned into bits of glittering light. They spread out and eventually turned black before shattering to pieces. At the instant Guru Xianxia's body disappeared, 7 Moons sect fell silent, but soon, the loudest commotion erupted since Su Ming had begun clearing the Tao Divinity Shadow Dissension. It was especially so for the 4th layer of sky beyond the sky. Su Ming's act of killing Guru Xianxia allowed him to obtain many people's approval. The buzzing from the commotion at that moment was mostly filled with expectation, and it was even more so in the 3rd layer of sky beyond the sky. Very few people had derision and disapproval towards Su Ming's act of clearing the rune at that moment. Instead, it had turned into acceptance. Due to their acceptance, the words that tumbled out of their mouths were filled with chants calling out for the 12th formation. Their voices echoed in the air, spurring Su Ming on, expecting him to challenge the 12th formation. 12th formation. 12th formation. Wang Dao. Challenge the 12th formation. Continue until you reach your limit. If you can clear the 14th formation, you will gain a 2nd shadow figure. Wang Dao, you have to clear the 14th formation. Various voices rose and fell. When they echoed in the air, Yilong was already leaning against the wall of the mountain behind him with a pale face as he stared at Su Ming on the feng shui compass. He no longer had any idea how to express the mixed feelings and anguish in his heart. Amid the cheers, more powerful warriors from the fourth layer began to pay attention to Su Ming, especially the head disciples of the 13 mountains. At that moment, 7 of them had opened their eyes and fixed their stares on Su Ming. There were solemn expressions on their faces. Su Ming had already proven to be somewhat of a threat to those 7 people. With everyone's gazes trained on him, Su Ming stood on the feng shui compass. He closed his eyes to hide the contemplative glint in regards to the things he had just seen. Soon after, when he opened his eyes, he looked as calm as before. No one could tell whether he was happy or angry, nor if there were any emotions surging in his heart. Su Ming lifted his right hand and pushed downwards, in the direction of the feng shui compass below him. With it, the feng shui compass roared. In the blink of an eye, it began rotating, and as it did so, it grew to be nearly twice the size. If anyone saw it from a distance, they would find themselves shocked by the size. It levitated in the air above 7 moons sect, and at the moment it rotated, the countless runic symbols began shining brilliantly before floating out of the feng shui compass. Then, they gathered in front of Su Ming, to turn into a figure which was 30 or so feet tall. That figure was pitch black and full of explosive power, but in the blink of an eye, it gained corporeal form and turned into a huge man. He was covered from head to toe in scars, and once his body came into full view, he opened his eyes and let out a roar that shook the sky and earth. Great mourner Xianxia, the cultivator who was killed and sealed 8,000 years ago. That's right. That's his shadow. He's the rune shadow that most commonly appears for the 12th formation. I've seen several senior brothers challenge the 12th formation, and the Great Mourner can appear in 2 states. One of them is his current state, and the other is when he goes mad. His power will increase exponentially, and he will reach a terrifying state. Amid the discussions, the 30-something feet tall man let out a shocking roar. I am the shadow of the 12th formation. Unless you defeat me, your progress will stop here. As the man roared, he charged at Su Ming. When he lifted his right hand, the air roared. He threw a punch at Su Ming, and his fist instantly closed in on him. Su Ming's expression remained the same. At the instant the man closed in on him, he did not move back, but forward. Once he took a step, he lifted his right hand. He clenched his fist and threw a punch straight at the incoming man. I've laid low for 8 years. It's about time for me to show my power. At the instant Su Ming said those words, his punch clashed against the man's. A loud bang instantly surged into the sky. It shook eardrums of all the cultivators in the area. The man jolted and let out a shrill scream of pain. His right hand crumbled, and when he staggered backwards, Su Ming took a step forward with a calm expression. Once he drew close to the man, he unfurled his fist, straightened it, and seized the man's neck. He squeezed down slightly, and the man's screams came to an abrupt halt. As he shuddered, veins popped up on his face. A growl escaped his throat at that moment. His body became bulkier, and veins covered his skin. As his power increased exponentially, his expression became ferocious. Madness showed up in his eyes. In the blink of an eye, he grew from 30 feet to nearly 50 feet tall, and he still continued growing. As he grew taller, even Su Ming, who had the man's neck in his grasp, floated up from the feng shui compass. Get lost! The man let out an astonishing roar. He raised his arms as if he wanted to grab Su Ming, but before he could touch him, without any change in his expression, Su Ming increased the strength of his grip. Immediately, the man, whose body was clearly growing stronger and bigger, jolted. An incredulous expression appeared in his eyes. When his lifted arms fell, Su Ming released his grip. His body landed lightly on the feng shui compass while the man's body fell with a bang. All his life force was crushed when Su Ming had increased the strength in his grip. He had not crushed the man while he was at his maddest, but while he had his strength increase continuously in explosive bursts. It might seem easier, but only those with outstanding power could understand the principle behind it and which one was harder. The power required to crush him while he had his strength increase in explosive bursts surpassed what was required when he had reached his full strength 13th formation. Su Ming stared at the man's body as he gradually dissipated from the feng shui compass. The man did not die, but instead returned to the rune to wait for the next person who came to challenge, and then he would wake up again. At that moment, all the Seven Moons sect cultivators in the area had excitement on their faces. Before Su Ming had challenged the rune, they had not expected that they would see something like that. In fact, when Su Ming had just begun challenging the rune, they would have never expected that he would arrive where he was right then. The 13th formation was a checkpoint for all the disciples in the 4th layer of Sky Beyond of Sky. Those who cleared it were few even among the disciples of the 4th layer. Only the head disciples in charge of the mountains and the powerful warriors of each mountain could clear them. To most disciples, clearing the 12 formations was already their limit, because the shadow serving as garrison of the 13th formation was an existence most disciples could not fight. Because of that, there was a categorization the inner sect disciples of Seven Moons sect had for the 13th formation that did not belong to the sect rules, and that was that the 13th formation was a checkpoint where their status would increase by leaps and bounds once they cleared it. Those who cleared the 13th formation would no longer be ordinary disciples, but powerful warriors serving as inner sect disciples of Seven Moons sect. They would get most of the resources, best training, as well as a status that would bring all eyes on them. There were less than 100 people among the disciples in the 4th layer of Sky Beyond the Sky who had cleared the 13th layer. And at that moment, Su Ming was going to challenge the formation that served as the great checkpoint. Everyone's excited gazes were on Su Ming. When the feng shui compass rotated with loud bangs and its size increased by leaps and bounds, an ancient voice echoed from the rune. "I am the one who guards the 13th formation. Sect Elder Wang, greetings." When the man's words echoed in the air, a black figure appeared on the feng shui compass. It instantly became clear and turned into an old man dressed in a white robe. Su Ming had seen him 8 years ago. He was one of the 13 sect elders.